If you look at what hundreds of thousands of Israelis, left, right, and center, are out demonstrating and saying is, we want our hostages back, we want the war to end, and the moment we get our hostages back, then the war ends. And another very important thing, which of course Mehdi represented very poorly, was that there is no deal for all of the hostages. The current waiting is for Hamas to say, okay, we agree to hand over all of the hostages.
What happens when a television debate stops being a debate and turns into a battle over who is even allowed to finish a sentence? In this heated exchange, Mehdi Hasan goes head-to-head with an IDF spokesperson, and the tension escalates almost immediately. The conversation quickly becomes a clash between competing narratives, with Hasan repeatedly trying to challenge the claims being made, while the spokesperson appears determined to interrupt, push back, and control the direction of the discussion. And that is what makes this exchange so revealing. Because in political debates like this, the real battle is often not just over what happened, but over who gets to define the facts, who gets to frame the story, and whether uncomfortable questions will actually be answered. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. So watch this clip closely. Pay attention to the interruptions, the claims being made, and the moment the conversation begins to unravel. Then, once the exchange is over, I'll break down exactly what happened and give you my thoughts.
He represents an electorate, democratically elected, but he represents an electorate which is on the extreme sides of Israeli politics. I perhaps shouldn't belittle and call them fringe, but it is an extreme part of Israeli society. But if you look at what other parts, the majority, if you look at what hundreds of thousands of Israelis, left, right, and center, are out demonstrating and saying is, we want our hostages back, we want the war to end, and the moment we get our hostages back, then the war ends. And another very important thing, which of course Mehdi represented very poorly, was that there is no deal for all of the hostages. The current waiting is for Hamas to say, okay, we agree to hand over all of the hostages. Currently, what we have on the table is 10 live hostages and half of the murdered hostages, and that isn't good enough. We don't want Hamas to have any live hostages that they can have, because that means that the war continues, that means that the suffering will continue, and that is not what we want.
Okay, Mehdi.
I can't believe that, 23 months into this, I'm still having to come on these shows and fact-check this kind of nonsense propaganda from pro-Israel people. As you pointed out,
in a position
Piers,
to fact-check.
They are on the record. Orit Strouk. They are on. Yeah, I can actually fact-check. Let's give some facts. Bezalel Smotrich has said very clearly the hostages are not the priority.
You're not the representative of
the
fact,
settlements
Mehdi
minister.
Hasan.
Can I speak without being interrupted?
Let him speak, Jonathan.
You had a chance.
Jonathan, he
you
was
had a chance for your propaganda. I didn't interrupt you. I will interrupt you for the next 20 minutes.
Jonathan, he allowed you to speak without interruption. Let Mehdi do the same.
Fine.
You can come back in and lie again in a moment. I'll give the facts to the viewers. The finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, said very clearly that the hostages are not the priority. Ben Gvir has said a similar line. Orit Strouk, the settlements minister, said recently, we have to go into every area, even if the hostages die, even if they're unsafe, we have to do it. They have made that very clear. Gallant, the former defense minister, said Netanyahu was sacrificing the hostages. The hostages' families went to the homes of the Israeli cabinet just 9 days ago. They protested outside the government's homes and said, you are sacrificing our children on the altar of eternal war. Those are the words of the hostages' families, not the former IDF spokesman, Piers, who you've brought on to lie on behalf of the Israeli military. So many lies he told there in that statement that he just gave this long rant. He doesn't want me to speak now, obviously, because the fact checks will hurt him. Again and again, they have said the hostages are not the priority. And this idea of fringe figures, as you said, Piers, Bezalel Smotrich is the finance minister. He said in May of this year, we are disassembling Gaza. We are turning it into piles of rubble. We are destroying the Gaza Strip. We are there to conquer, cleanse and remain. Those are the words of Smotrich. By the way, on the same day, Piers, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, put out a tweet saying, Bezalel, you have spoken the truth. You show leadership. So this is the entire government. It's not just the entire government. It's the country. A majority of Israelis say they want Palestinians expelled from the Gaza Strip, according to every poll. This is not a fringe view. This is the Israeli government. this is Israeli society. And for Jonathan to say, I'm in the Hamas camp, come on, Jonathan, get some new lines. I'm not in the Hamas camp. I've never defended Hamas on this show once. Piers knows that. Although you come on this show to defend an Israeli military you were part of and spokesman for. You were part of an Israeli military that's being investigated at the ICJ for genocide. You're part of an Israeli military that was indicted at the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity. You're part of an Israeli military that the International Association of Genocide Scholars have said is a genocide. You're part of a military. You're part of a military that's being investigated by international courts. You're part of a military.
Well, I think, okay, Jonathan, hang on. Let me jump in.
No, hold on, I'm finishing my point, Piers.
Jonathan, let me finish and I'll come to you.
You're part of a military that has been investigated for sexual violence and rape against Palestinians. Did that happen on your watch? Did you sign off on what the UN says is sexual and gender-based violence?
Let me ask Jonathan a question. Okay, Jonathan.
A military that bombed a hospital last week, Jonathan.
Okay,
your military bombed a hospital.
Let me ask Jonathan an IDF question.
Bombed a hospital.
Let me ask Jonathan.
Only a sociopath would defend that.
All right, let me ask Jonathan a question, which is...
And once again, Mehdi Hasan walks into one of these debates completely prepared. He does not just throw out opinions. He comes with specific statements, dates, and public comments. And that creates a serious problem when the other side is relying on broad talking points instead of directly answering the claims being made. Because once the conversation moves from slogans to specific facts, the whole dynamic changes. And that is exactly what we saw here. Instead of directly addressing every point Hasan raised, the exchange quickly turned into interruptions, accusations, and attempts to shift the focus. And that raises a simple question. If the argument is strong, why not just answer the criticism? Calling someone a Hamas supporter or accusing them of working for a terrorist organization does not automatically disprove what they are saying. Criticizing the Israeli government or the IDF is not the same thing as supporting Hamas. Those are separate issues. And this is where Hasan's approach becomes effective. He keeps dragging the conversation back to specific statements and public positions. Meanwhile, the spokesperson appears increasingly focused on challenging Hasan himself and disrupting the discussion. But here is the problem with that strategy. The audience can still hear the questions. They can still see the interruptions. And they can still decide whether those questions were actually answered. Now, that does not mean every claim Mehdi Hasan makes should automatically be accepted. The strongest way to challenge him would be simple. Correct the facts, provide the context, and explain why his argument is wrong. That is how you win a debate, not by simply talking louder. But that is my take. What did you think of the exchange? Did the IDF spokesperson actually answer Hasan's arguments? Or did the interruptions and accusations distract from the real issues? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed the breakdown, hit the like button and subscribe for more. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.